The marble floor beneath my knees was cold enough to seep through my worn uniform, but I barely noticed anymore. Pain had become background noise. Just another thing I'd learned to ignore, like hunger, like exhaustion, like the way Mrs. Chen's voice could slice through a room when she found a single fingerprint on her precious glassware. Again, Isabella. Do it again. I pressed my forehead against the floor, breathing in the sharp scent of lemon polish mixed with my own sweat. My hands were raw, cracked at the knuckles from the industrial cleaners we weren't supposed to use without gloves. But gloves slowed you down, and slow meant staying past midnight, and midnight meant missing the last bus, and missing the last bus meant walking home through neighborhoods where girls like me disappeared. The Chen estate sprawled across 5 acres of Los Angeles hills, a monument to new money and old cruelty. I'd been cleaning it for 6 months, ever since the temp agency had placed me here with a warning. Don't mess this up. The Chens go through staff like tissues, but they pay well enough that people keep applying. They hadn't mentioned why people kept leaving. I scrubbed the same section of floor for the 3rd time, watching my distorted reflection ripple in the polished surface. 23 years old and invisible. That's what I'd become. The girl who cleaned up after people who'd never once looked at her face. Sometimes I wondered if I'd even cast a shadow anymore, or if I'd simply faded into the furniture, another fixture in someone else's palace. You missed a spot. Mrs. Chen's Louboutins clicked past my head. I didn't look up. Looking up meant eye contact, and eye contact meant she'd find something else wrong, some new inadequacy to punish. I'd learned this dance, this careful choreography of submission. The house was preparing for something big. I'd gathered that much from the frantic energy humming through the staff. Extra security had been stationed at every entrance since yesterday. The regular guards I'd grown accustomed to ignoring had been replaced by men who looked like they'd break you first and ask questions never. They wore expensive suits that couldn't quite hide the weapons beneath, their eyes constantly scanning, assessing threats in every shadow. Mr. Chen's associates will be arriving at 8, Mrs. Chen announced, her accent thick despite 20 years in America. The floors must shine like glass. The silverware must gleam. If anything is out of place, anything, you're finished here. Understood? Yes, ma'am. She walked away, trailing Chanel No. 5 and disapproval. I sat back on my heels, finally allowing myself a breath. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Los Angeles sprawled beneath us like a galaxy of broken promises. Somewhere down there was the apartment I shared with 3 other girls, a 400-square-foot box where we took turns sleeping because there were only 2 beds. Somewhere down there was the life I'd imagined when I'd left Arizona. College, career, becoming someone who mattered. Instead, I was here, making floors shine for people who wouldn't spit on me if I was on fire. The antique grandfather clock in the foyer chimed 6. 2 hours until the guests arrived. I gathered my supplies, careful not to let the bottles clink together. Sound carried in this mausoleum, and Mrs. Chen had ears like a bat. The kitchen was chaos, caterers shouting in Mandarin and Spanish, the head chef screaming about truffle oil, someone dropping an entire tray of champagne flutes that shattered like ice against tile. I slipped through the carnage, invisible as always, heading toward the service hallway that led to the wine cellar. That's where I first smelled him. Not saw him, smelled him. Tobacco and bergamot, expensive leather and something darker, something that made the hair on my neck stand up the way it does before a thunderstorm. Danger, my instincts whispered. Predator. I froze in the hallway, my heart suddenly loud in my ears. Lost? The voice came from behind me, low and smooth as smoke. I turned slowly, and the world tilted. He stood in the shadows near the cellar entrance, a figure carved from darkness and sharp edges. Tall, well over 6 feet, with shoulders that filled out his black suit in a way that suggested violence barely contained. His face was all brutal angles and aristocratic bones, the kind of handsome that felt dangerous, like touching a blade to see if it's sharp. Dark hair swept back from his forehead, and eyes so deep brown they looked black in the dim hallway watched me with an intensity that made my skin burn, but it was the stillness that terrified me most. He didn't fidget, didn't shift his weight, didn't blink. He simply existed in that space like a panther deciding whether you were prey or not worth the effort. I'm sorry, sir. My voice came out smaller than I wanted. Broken. I hated how I sounded, like a frightened child. He tilted his head slightly, studying me the way a scientist might study an insect. Just what? Getting more polish. For the floors. Mrs. Chen wants... I know what Mrs. Chen wants. He stepped forward, and the hallway seemed to shrink around us. That's not what I asked. Up close, I could see details that made my stomach clench. A thin scar ran from his temple to his jaw, silver against olive skin. His hands, resting casually in his pockets, bore the faint marks of old burns across the knuckles. And his eyes... God. His eyes held something ancient and tired, like he'd seen every ugliness the world had to offer, and had emerged victorious but not unscathed. I'm not lost, sir. I work here. I know. The corner of his mouth lifted in something that wasn't quite a smile. Isabella Moreno, 23, originally from Tucson. No family, no degree, 3 part-time jobs. You've been cleaning the Chen residence for 6 months, 7 days a week, 10 to 12 hours per shift. You take the 11:47 bus home every night except Wednesdays, when you stay late and walk. Foolish. The blood drained from my face. How do you... I make it my business to know who moves through spaces I occupy. He pulled a hand from his pocket, and I flinched. Actually flinched. But he only reached past me to straighten a painting on the wall, his arm brushing my shoulder. The brief contact sent electricity racing down my spine. This hallway leads to the wine cellar. The wine cellar leads to the garage. The garage leads outside, a clever exit route for someone who wanted to avoid attention. I wasn't trying to. I know. He stepped back, giving me space I desperately needed. You're not the type. You lower your eyes, make yourself small, apologize for existing. You've been beaten down until you've forgotten how to stand up straight. The observation, delivered so matter-of-factly, felt like being stripped naked. I wanted to protest, to defend myself, but the words dried up in my throat because he was right. When had I become this person? When had I started apologizing for taking up space in the world? Mr. Rossi? Mrs. Chen's voice shattered the moment like a hammer through glass. She appeared at the end of the hallway, her face tight with barely concealed panic. I didn't realize you'd arrived. Please, come this way. Everything is prepared. I was just meeting your staff. His eyes never left my face, pinning me in place. Very thorough. Your training. She was just explaining the proper technique for polishing floors. Mrs. Chen's expression could have curdled milk. Isabella, get back to work. Now. I nodded, grabbing my supplies with shaking hands, but as I turned to leave, he spoke again. Isabella. I stopped, turned back, met those black eyes. Be careful on the floors tonight, they'll be slippery. His voice dropped lower, intimate despite Mrs. Chen's presence. And stay out of the east wing after 8. Dangerous things happen in dark corners at parties like these. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a command, delivered with the absolute certainty of someone who expected obedience. But underneath the authority, I heard something else, something that sounded almost like concern. Then he was gone, following Mrs. Chen down the hallway, and I was left trembling against the wall, my heart beating so fast I thought I might be sick. The next 2 hours passed in a blur. I polished and scrubbed and arranged, my mind spinning in circles. Who was he? Why had he known so much about me? And why did the way he said my name feel like a brand burning into my skin? At 7:30, the house transformed. Lights dimmed to a golden glow. Music drifted through rooms, something classical and haunting. The caterers emerged from the kitchen with trays of food that probably cost more than I made in a month. And the guests began to arrive. They came in expensive cars with tinted windows. Men in suits that cost 5 figures, women dripping in jewels that could have fed a small country. But there was something off about them, something that set my teeth on edge. These weren't the usual Los Angeles elite, tech billionaires and entertainment moguls. These people moved differently, spoke in careful tones, their eyes constantly assessing exits and threats. I'd seen enough crime documentaries to recognize predators when I saw them. I kept to the edges, as invisible as possible, clearing glasses and wiping surfaces. The conversations floated around me, discussions of territories and shipments, of problems that had been handled and people who had disappeared. My blood ran cold. What kind of party was this? The Rossi family sends their regards, someone said near me, and I stilled. Rossi, the man from the hallway. Dante Rossi is here? Another voice replied, hushed and reverent. I thought he never attended the Chen's events. Special circumstances. Word is he's finalizing the port contracts tonight. I moved away quickly, my pulse pounding. Dante Rossi. Even I'd heard that name whispered in certain circles. Always with fear. Always with respect. The youngest Don in Los Angeles history. A man who'd inherited his father's empire at 25 and had tripled its size in 3 years through sheer ruthlessness and strategic brilliance. A man who made people disappear. And I'd stood in a hallway with him, alone, while he'd recited my life story like he'd memorized it. I needed to leave. Right now. This wasn't worth minimum wage and bus fare. But as I headed toward the service exit, Mrs. Chen intercepted me, her nails digging into my arm. Where do you think you're going? The library needs to be prepared for the private meeting. Now. Mrs. Chen, I really think I don't pay you to think. Move. She shoved me toward the stairs, and I climbed with leaden feet. The library was on the 2nd floor, in the east wing. Exactly where Dante Rossi had told me not to go. The room was dark when I entered, lit only by the city lights streaming through the windows. I fumbled for the lamp switch, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip it. The light flooded the space, revealing walls of leather-bound books, a massive mahogany desk, and Dante Rossi, collapsed on the floor, clutching his chest. His face was gray, twisted in pain. One hand pressed against his heart while the other reached out, grasping at nothing. His breathing came in short, desperate gasps. Help, he choked out, his eyes finding mine. Help me. For a split second I froze. Every survival instinct I possessed screamed at me to run, to get out, to not get involved with whatever this was. This man was dangerous. This man was probably dying from some kind of hit, some revenge killing, and helping him meant painting a target on my own back. But then I saw his hand trembling, saw the genuine fear in those black eyes. And something inside me, something I thought had died long ago, surged to life. I dropped to my knees beside him, my hands hovering over his chest. Where's your phone? I'll call an ambulance. No. He grabbed my wrist with surprising strength, his fingers like iron bands. No ambulance, no calls, just another gasp. Just stay. You're having a heart attack, you need a hospital. No hospitals. His grip tightened. They'll kill me there. Finish the job. Oh God. This was exactly what I'd feared. I was kneeling in the middle of a mob assassination, holding the hand of a dying crime boss, and any second now, someone would burst through that door and... Please. His voice cracked, vulnerable in a way that shattered something in my chest. Don't leave me alone. Not like this. I'd been alone my whole life. I knew what it felt like to face darkness with no one to hold your hand. And despite everything, despite the danger, despite the fear, despite my better judgment, I couldn't do it to someone else. Okay, I whispered, settling beside him on the floor. Okay, I'm here. I'm not leaving. His breathing evened out slightly, his death grip on my wrist loosening to something gentler. What's your name? You know my name. Tell me anyway. Isabella. Isabella. He said it like a prayer, like a promise. Beautiful name. Italian? Mexican. My grandmother's choice. He smiled. Actually smiled. Despite the pain creasing his face. Teaching you to survive in a world that eats soft things alive. I'm not soft, I protested weakly. No. His thumb brushed across my pulse point, and I shivered. No, you're not. You're here, aren't you? When anyone else would have run, I should have run. Probably. Another gasping breath, but you didn't. Why? I didn't have an answer. Or maybe I did, and it scared me too much to say it out loud. That I saw something in his eyes that matched the loneliness in my own soul. That for just a moment, I'd stopped being invisible. So instead, I did something insane. I lifted his head and placed it in my lap, running my fingers through his dark hair, the way my mother used to do for me when I was small and scared. You're not dying alone, I whispered. Not tonight. Not like this. His eyes closed, his face relaxing into something almost peaceful. For several minutes, we stayed like that, a maid and a monster, finding unexpected grace in the dark. Then his eyes snapped open, clear and sharp, all trace of pain gone, and he smiled. The transformation happened so fast I didn't have time to process it. One moment, Dante Rossi was dying in my arms, his face gray with pain. The next, he was sitting up with the fluid grace of a predator. All traces of distress vanished like smoke. What? The word barely escaped before understanding crashed over me like ice water. You were faking. Yes. He straightened his suit jacket, watching me with those unreadable dark eyes. No apology, no explanation. Just that single word hanging between us like a verdict. I scrambled backward on the floor, my heart hammering against my ribs. You were testing me. This was some kind of sick test, not sick. Necessary. He stood, offering me his hand. I stared at it like it might bite. Isabella, don't. I pushed myself up without his help. My legs shaking so badly I had to grip the edge of the desk for support. Rage was burning through the shock now. Hot and righteous. Don't say my name like we're friends. You made me think you were dying, and you stayed. He took a step toward me. I took one back. That's the point. You stayed when you should have run. You held my hand when you should have called for help. You chose compassion over self-preservation. So what? You get some kind of thrill from manipulating people? From watching them panic? My voice was rising, cracking. I thought you were dying. I thought I was going to watch you die, and I couldn't finish. Couldn't admit how much it had affected me. This stranger's pain. I needed to know. His voice softened, and somehow that was worse than if he'd stayed cold. I needed to know if you were real. Real? I laughed, high and broken. I'm a maid. I'm nobody. What could you possibly need to know about me? He moved then, faster than I expected, closing the distance between us until I was trapped against the desk with nowhere to run. He didn't touch me. Didn't need to. His presence alone was a cage. You're not nobody. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. You're the girl who works 3 jobs and still sends money to a friend's sick kid in Tucson. You're the girl who stayed late last Tuesday to help Maria finish the East Wing because she was crying about her daughter's tuition. You're the girl who leaves half your lunch in the break room because you know Jorge skips meals to save money. You think I don't see you? I see everything, Isabella, and what I see is someone who's still kind in a world that's tried to beat it out of her. The accuracy of his observations made me feel violated, exposed. You've been watching me. For 3 months. That's insane. Why would you? I pressed my hands against his chest, trying to push him back, but it was like trying to move a mountain. Let me go. Not yet. His hands came up to rest on the desk on either side of me, boxing me in. Not until you understand. Understand what? That you're a psychopath who stages heart attacks for fun? That I'm choosing you. The words hit like a physical blow. I'm choosing you to be my wife. The world stopped. Actually stopped. Time crystallized into this single impossible moment. Your wife, I repeated, the words tasting foreign on my tongue. You want me to marry you? Yes. We just met. I know everything about you that matters. You're insane. Probably. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. But I'm also serious. Deadly serious. I laughed again, the sound edging toward hysteria. You can't just decide someone's going to marry you. That's not how this works. You can't. People don't. People in my world do exactly what I tell them to do. His voice hardened. But I don't want your obedience, Isabella. I want your choice. That's why the test. I needed to know who you were when you thought no one was watching, when there was nothing to gain and everything to lose. And you? Something flickered in his eyes, something almost vulnerable. You were perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm broken and tired and perfect for me, he interrupted. Perfect for what I need. Perfect for... He stopped himself, jaw clenching. There are things happening, dangerous things. I need someone beside me who won't betray me when the money runs out or the threats get too real. Someone who'll stay when staying is the hardest thing in the world. You don't know that I would. Yes, I do. You just proved it. His hand came up, fingers ghosting along my jaw without quite touching. You held a dying man's hand because you couldn't bear to let him die alone. What do you think you'd do for someone you actually cared about? The implications of his words made my head spin. This is crazy. You're in the Mafia. I heard the conversations downstairs. I'm not stupid. No, you're not, which is why you know I'm offering you a way out. He finally touched me then, his thumb brushing across my cheekbone so gently it made my chest ache. Out of the poverty, the exhaustion, the invisibility, out of scrubbing floors for people who treat you like dirt, I can give you safety, security, a life where you matter. In exchange for what? Being your property? Being my partner? The distinction seemed important to him. Being someone I can trust in a world full of snakes. Being... He stopped, seeming to struggle with words. Being the thing I come home to that reminds me I'm still human. The vulnerability in that admission cracked something in my chest. But I couldn't let it sway me. This was insane. This was... I need to think, I whispered. I need time to... You have until midnight. He stepped back, releasing me from his gravitational pull. Come to the garden at midnight. Say yes, and I'll take you away from here tonight. Say no. His expression hardened. Say no, and you'll never see me again. But you'll be safe. I'll make sure of that. You'll find a new job, a better apartment, everything you need to start over, no strings attached. Why midnight? Because after midnight, circumstances change. After midnight, I won't be able to protect you from the consequences of what happens in this house tonight. Cold fear slithered down my spine. What's happening tonight? Nothing you need to worry about. If you choose me. He moved toward the door, his hand on the handle. Midnight, Isabella. Garden fountain. Don't be late. Wait. But he was already gone, the door clicking shut with a finality that echoed through the room. I stood there for a long moment, my mind reeling. Then I ran. I ran down the back stairs, through the service hallways, out into the cool Los Angeles night. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone. But who was I going to call? The police? And tell them what? That a mob boss had fake-died and proposed marriage? That I was in danger from something I didn't understand? The party continued inside, music and laughter drifting through the windows. Like everything was normal, but I could see the guards now, stationed at every entrance. Their eyes scanning, always scanning. I could see the way the guests moved, predators in expensive clothing, playing at civility while planning violence. And I could see Dante Rossi through the library window, standing in the darkness, watching me run. I made it to the service gate before a hand clamped on my shoulder. Going somewhere? Mrs. Chen's voice was acid. Your shift isn't over. I need to leave. I'm not feeling well. You're feeling fine. You're coming back inside to finish your work. Her nails dug into my arm. And then you're going to explain to me why Dante Rossi is asking about you. My blood froze. He's not. Don't lie to me. I saw you together in the library. What did you do? Did you throw yourself at him like some kind of... I didn't do anything. No? She dragged me back toward the house. Then why is he requesting you specifically to serve the private meeting? Why is he asking how long you've worked here, what you've seen? Oh God. Mrs. Chen, please, I don't know anything. You're a terrible liar. She shoved me through the door. The meeting starts in 10 minutes. You'll serve drinks. You'll keep your eyes down and your mouth shut. And if you do anything to embarrass this household, I'll make sure you never work in this city again. Am I clear? I nodded, mute with terror. The next 10 minutes were a blur of preparation. They dressed me in a formal server's uniform, slicked my hair back into a severe bun, gave me a tray of crystal glasses filled with amber liquid. My hands shook so badly the glasses clinked together. Still, Mrs. Chen hissed. Be still, or I'll have you thrown out. The private meeting was held in the Chen's study. A wood-paneled room that smelled like cigars and old money. 8 men sat around the table, each one radiating the kind of power that came from violence and fear. Dante Rossi sat at the head, looking like a dark angel in his black suit, completely at ease in this den of monsters. "Gentlemen," Mr. Chen began, his voice oily with false friendship. "Let's discuss the port access." "No." Dante's single word silenced the room. "First, let's discuss why you've been skimming 20% off the top of our shipments for the past 6 months. The temperature dropped 20 degrees. Mr. Chen's face went pale, then red. "I don't know what you're talking about. Port manifests don't lie, Chen. Neither do the warehouse records my people obtained last week." Dante pulled out a folder, spreading documents across the table. "You've been stealing from me, from my family. That's a mistake people don't usually survive." I stood frozen by the wall, the tray trembling in my hands. This was it. The violence I'd sensed brewing all night. Someone was going to die in this room. "It was a misunderstanding, Mr. Chen stammered. "A bookkeeping error. $2 million is not an error." Dante's voice never rose, but the threat in it made my stomach clench. "It's theft. It's betrayal. It's grounds for—" He paused, his eyes finding me across the room. Something in his expression shifted. "However, I'm prepared to be merciful." The men around the table looked shocked. Clearly, mercy wasn't Dante Rossi's usual play. "You have something I want," Dante continued, still watching me. "Something more valuable than money. Give it to me, and we'll call your debt paid." Mr. Chen's eyes darted around, desperate. "Anything. Whatever you want. Her." Dante pointed at me. "Isabella Moreno. I want her contract transferred to me, immediately." "My contract? I don't have a contract." "Yes, you do." Mrs. Chen's smile was pure venom. "When you signed on through the temp agency, you agreed to an indentured service contract, 2 years minimum. We own you, sweetheart." The room spun. That's why no one ever quit. That's why they could treat us however they wanted. We were slaves, dressed up in legal paperwork. Is this true? I looked at Dante, betrayed. "You knew about this?" "I know everything about the Chen's operation." His face was unreadable, including their habit of exploiting desperate women through illegal labor contracts. "So, Chen, what do you say? Her freedom in exchange for your life?" Mr. Chen practically sobbed with relief. Yes, take her. She's yours." "No." I dropped the tray, glasses shattering across the floor. "You can't just trade me like property. I'm not a thing you can buy and sell." Dante rose from his seat, moving toward me with predatory grace. "You're right. You're not a thing." He pulled something from his pocket, a folded document. "Which is why I'm not buying you. I'm freeing you. This is your contract, Isabella. As of right now, it's void. You're free to walk out of here and never look back." I stared at the paper he held out, my mind struggling to process. "I don't understand." "You have a choice." His voice softened. "Meant only for me. You can leave. Take this freedom and build whatever life you want. Or," he paused, something vulnerable flickering in his eyes, "or you can choose me. Not because you're owned, not because you're bought, but because you want to. Why?" The word came out broken. "Why would you do this? Because someone who stays when they think I'm dying deserves to only stay when they want to. Because you deserve to choose your own cage, Isabella, or to fly free." The other men in the room shifted uncomfortably, watching this intimate exchange. Mrs. Chen's face was purple with rage, but all I could see was Dante offering me something no one ever had before. Choice. "The garden," I whispered. "Midnight." He smiled, real and warm and devastating. "Midnight." Then his expression shuddered, becoming cold and businesslike as he turned back to Chen. "We're done here. Have the corrected manifests on my desk by Friday, or mercy becomes a memory." I ran from the room, the torn contract clutched in my shaking hands, and didn't stop until I was in the servants' quarters, gasping for breath. The other staff avoided me, sensing danger like animals before an earthquake. Maria found me there at 11:30, tears streaming down my face as I stared at my freedom, written in black and white. "Isabella? Mija, what happened?" He freed me, I whispered. The most dangerous man in Los Angeles just gave me my freedom and asked me to choose him anyway. Dante Rossi? Maria's eyes widened. Dios mío. What are you going to do? I looked at the clock. 25 minutes until midnight. 25 minutes to decide between the life I knew, hard and lonely but safe, and stepping into the unknown, with a man who'd tested me like a lab rat, but looked at me like I was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. I don't know, I admitted. Maria, what would you do? She took my hands, her weathered face soft with understanding. I'd ask myself, when was the last time someone saw me? Really saw me? When was the last time I felt like more than a ghost in my own life? Tonight, I thought. Tonight, when a monster held my hand and made me feel human. I stood on shaking legs, smoothing down my ruined uniform. I have to go. Be careful, mija. Men like that, they're dangerous. I know. I hugged her tight. But maybe I'm tired of being safe. The garden was silver with moonlight when I arrived at 11:58. The fountain burbled softly, casting dancing shadows across the carefully manicured lawn. Dante stood with his back to me, hands in his pockets, looking up at the stars like he was trying to find answers in their light. I didn't think you'd come, he said without turning around. I didn't think I would either. I moved closer, my heart in my throat. This is insane. You know that, right? This whole thing is absolutely insane. Yes. He finally turned, and in the moonlight, he looked younger, less dangerous, almost human. But sometimes insanity is the only rational response to an irrational world. I don't know you. You don't know me. Not really. I know you stayed. He closed the distance between us. I know you held my hand when you thought I was dying. I know you're brave enough to stand here right now even though you're terrified. What else do I need to know? Everything. My favorite color, my dreams, whether I want kids, if I snore, blue. You want to open a bookshop someday. You're terrified of wanting children because you're afraid you'd fail them the way the world failed you. And yes, you snore. Softly. I've heard it through the monitors. I should have been creeped out by how much he knew. Instead, I felt seen in a way that made my chest ache. Why me? I whispered. You could have anyone. Why choose someone like me? Because everyone else wants something from me. Power, money, protection. You wanted nothing except to ease the pain of a dying stranger. That's so rare, Isabella. That's so precious, and He stopped, jaw clenching. I'm tired of being alone in rooms full of people. I'm tired of wondering who'll be the one to put a bullet in my back. I need someone real, someone kind, someone who'll remind me why I'm fighting to survive in the first place. I can't promise I'll be good at this, at being whatever you need. I don't need good, I need real. His hand came up, cupping my face with surprising gentleness. So tell me, Isabella Moreno, will you take a chance on the devil? Will you let me show you that you're worth more than minimum wage and midnight buses? Will you marry me? I looked into his dark eyes and saw my own loneliness reflected back at me. Two damaged people reaching for connection in the darkness. Yes, I breathed. God help me, yes. He kissed me then, soft and almost reverent, like I was something precious he was afraid of breaking. And in that moment, with moonlight silver on our skin and the future a terrifying unknown, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. We leave tonight, he murmured against my lips. I have a car waiting. We'll fly to Vegas, get married before sunrise. By the time the sun comes up, you'll be Isabella Rossi, and no one in this city will ever be able to hurt you again. What about my things? My roommates. Already handled. Your belongings are packed. Your roommates each have a check for 6 months' rent and a reference letter for better jobs. I told you, Isabella. I take care of what's mine. The possessiveness in his voice should have scared me. Instead, it made me feel safe. He led me to a black SUV idling at the service gate. Its windows tinted dark as sin. A man in a suit opened the door. One of the guards from earlier, his face professionally blank. Mrs. Moreno, he said, and the title made me shiver. Not yet, Dante corrected, helping me into the car. But soon. As we drove away from the Chen estate, I watched it disappear in the rearview mirror, that monument to cruelty where I'd spent 6 months being invisible. I didn't know what I was driving toward, didn't know if I was making the biggest mistake of my life. But for the first time in years, I wasn't alone, and that was worth almost any price. The private jet waiting at the small airport was obscene in its luxury. Cream leather seats, polished wood paneling, soft lighting that made everything glow like a dream. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, suddenly acutely aware of my wrinkled uniform, my scraped knees, the smell of cleaning products that probably clung to my skin. "I can't get on that plane looking like this," I whispered. Dante's hand pressed against the small of my back, warm and grounding. "There are clothes inside." "Everything you need. Come." The flight attendant, a polished woman who looked like she stepped out of a magazine, smiled without a trace of judgment as we boarded. "Mr. Rossi, welcome. Everything is prepared as requested. Thank you, Marie." He guided me toward the back of the plane, through a door that opened into a bedroom. An actual bedroom, with a queen-sized bed and an ensuite bathroom. On the bed lay a garment bag and a small suitcase. "Shower. Change. Take your time. We have 4 hours until Vegas." "You're not going to—" I gestured vaguely at the room, at him, my face burning. Understanding softened his expression. "I'll be up front, making calls. You have complete privacy, Isabella. I'm not going to rush you into anything you're not ready for. But we're getting married tonight. Marriage is a legal document, a promise. What happens after—" He stepped closer, his thumb brushing across my jaw. "What happens after goes at whatever pace you set. I can be patient when something matters." The gentleness in his voice undid something in my chest. I nodded, mute, and he left, closing the door softly behind him. The shower was heaven. Hot water, expensive soap that smelled like jasmine, shampoo that actually made my hair feel soft instead of stripped. I stood under the spray until my skin turned pink, washing away 6 months of the Chen estate, of invisibility, of survival mode. When I finally emerged, wrapped in a towel softer than anything I'd ever owned, I opened the garment bag with shaking hands. Inside was a dress, simple, elegant, cream-colored silk that fell like water. Not a wedding dress, nothing so presumptuous, but beautiful in its understated grace. The suitcase held underwear in my exact size, a pair of low heels, basic makeup, even a hairbrush. He'd thought of everything. I dressed slowly, my hands trembling. The dress fit perfectly, skimming my curves without being tight, the silk cool against my clean skin. I dried my hair, leaving it loose around my shoulders because I didn't know how else to style it. Minimal makeup. I'd never been good at more than that anyway. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. For the first time in months, I looked like a person instead of a ghost. The plane was already in the air when I emerged. Dante sat in one of the leather seats, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Italian. He looked up as I approached, and whatever he was saying died mid-sentence. "I'll call you back," he said, not taking his eyes off me as he ended the call. The way he looked at me made my skin feel too tight, too hot, like I was the only thing in the universe that mattered. "Beautiful," he said quietly. "I knew you would be, under all that exhaustion. But seeing it—" He stood, closing the distance between us. "You're going to destroy me, Isabella. I don't understand. I know." His smile was rueful. That's part of why. He guided me to sit, then surprised me by taking the seat beside me instead of across. Close enough that our shoulders touched, close enough that I could smell his cologne, that same tobacco and bergamot that had terrified me in the hallway. "Tell me about the bookshop," he said. I blinked at the non-sequitur. "What?" "Your dream. The bookshop you want to open someday. Tell me about it." "Why?" "Because I want to know you. The real you, not just the facts I collected." He shifted, angling toward me. "Tell me what it looks like in your head." So I did. Haltingly at first, then with growing confidence as he listened. Actually listened, asking questions, making suggestions. I told him about the children's section I'd imagined, the reading nooks with overstuffed chairs, the coffee bar that would smell like home. I told him about wanting to create a space where people felt safe, seen, welcome. "It sounds perfect," he said when I finally ran out of words. "We'll make it happen. Dante, I'm serious. After the wedding, after things settle, we'll find a location. You'll design it exactly how you want. It'll be yours." The casual way he offered to fund my dreams, like it was nothing, made my head spin. "I can't let you just buy me a bookshop." "Why not?" "Because that's not... People don't just..." I struggled for words. "I need to earn things. I need to feel like I deserve them. You held my hand when you thought I was dying. You've earned more than a bookshop, Bella." The endearment rolled off his tongue like honey. "But if it makes you feel better, you can work for it. Be my wife. Stand by my side. That's not an easy job. What exactly does being your wife entail?" The question had been burning in my mind since the garden. "You're not... I know you're in the Mafia. I'm not stupid. But what does that mean for me?" His expression grew serious. "It means you'll be protected. Always. It means you'll never want for anything. It means you'll attend events, meet people, smile and make conversation. It means you'll live in a world where danger is always present but never allowed to touch you. And what do you get out of it? Legitimacy. A wife makes me look stable, family-oriented. It opens doors that stay closed to confirmed bachelors." He took my hand, threading his fingers through mine. "But honestly, I get you. Someone real in a world of facades. Someone who reminds me why I'm human. That's worth more than any business advantage. You barely know me. I know enough. The rest," he squeezed my hand, "the rest we'll learn together." The plane began its descent just as dawn painted the sky in shades of rose and gold. Vegas sprawled beneath us, a glittering oasis in the desert, still blazing with lights even as the sun rose. "Are you scared?" Dante asked quietly. "Terrified," I admitted. "Good. Fear means you understand the weight of what we're doing." He stood, pulling me up with him. "But I promise you this, Isabella. I will never hurt you intentionally. I will never betray you. And I will kill anyone who tries to harm you. Can you live with that?" The casual mention of murder should have sent me running. Instead, it made me feel safe. "Yes," I whispered. "I can live with that." The chapel was small, surprisingly tasteful for Vegas. No Elvis, no neon, just soft lighting, white flowers, and a minister who looked like he'd married plenty of couples at dawn and knew not to ask questions. Dante's lawyer was there, a sharp-eyed woman named Sophia, who handed me papers to sign while maintaining professional distance. "Prenup," she explained. "Standard. You keep what's yours, he keeps what's his. In the event of divorce, you receive a settlement of $10 million and any property purchased in your name. If you die..." She paused delicately. "Everything goes to your designated beneficiary or charity of choice." "And if he dies?" The question escaped before I could stop it. "Then you inherit everything." Sophia's smile was thin, but let's hope it doesn't come to that. I signed in a daze, my hand moving across paper after paper. Marriage license, prenuptial agreement, documents I didn't fully understand but trusted Sophia to explain later. Then Dante was taking my hand, leading me to stand before the minister. And it was happening. "Dearly beloved," the words washed over me. Traditional vows, promises of forever, till death do us part. When it came time for rings, Dante produced a simple platinum band that fit my finger perfectly. Of course it did. He'd planned everything. "You may kiss the bride." Dante's kiss was gentle, almost chaste, a promise rather than a demand. When he pulled back, his eyes held something that looked almost like wonder. "Mrs. Rossi," he murmured. "My wife." The words felt surreal. 24 hours ago, I'd been scrubbing floors. Now I was married to a mob boss in a Vegas chapel at sunrise. "What happens now?" I asked as we left the chapel, the Nevada sun warm on my face. "Now we go home, to Los Angeles, to your new life." He helped me into another waiting car, this one a sleek black sedan with bulletproof glass. There will be people to meet, arrangements to make. But first, he pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. First, you eat. You've barely had food in 24 hours. I wanted to protest that I wasn't hungry, but my stomach betrayed me with an audible growl. Dante smiled, the expression transforming his severe features into something almost boyish. There's my practical girl, always honest, even when your body betrays you. The hotel he took me to was one of the finest in Vegas, a suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Strip. Room service arrived within minutes. Fresh fruit, eggs Benedict, pastries that melted on my tongue, coffee that tasted like heaven. Eat, Dante commanded gently, settling across from me. Then rest. We fly back this afternoon. Aren't you eating? I ate on the plane while you were showering. He watched me with those dark eyes, cataloging every bite I took like it mattered. I'm just enjoying watching you enjoy something for once. The observation was too close to the bone. I focused on the food, suddenly ravenous in a way that went beyond physical hunger. How long had it been since I'd eaten without calculating the cost? Since I'd tasted something just because it was delicious? Isabella. His voice made me look up. Thank you. For what? For taking a chance on me. For saying yes. He paused, seeming to struggle with words. For making me feel like maybe I can be more than what I was born into. The vulnerability in his voice cracked something open in my chest. I should be thanking you. You freed me. We freed each other. He stood, moving to the window. I want to be honest with you about something. About what happens when we get back to LA. My appetite vanished. Okay. There will be people who don't approve of this marriage. People who'll see you as a weakness to exploit. My enemies will try to use you to get to me. And my family... He laughed, bitter. My family will have opinions. Many, many opinions about me marrying a maid instead of someone from an established crime family. So I'm going to be in danger. You're going to be the most protected woman in California. But yes, there will be danger. There will be threats. There will be people who resent you just for existing beside me. He turned back to face me. I'm not going to lie and say it'll be easy, but I promise you'll never face it alone. I stood, moving to join him at the window. Vegas glittered beneath us, artificial and bright, and somehow hopeful. What if I'm not strong enough for this life? You're already strong enough. You survived the Chens. You survived poverty and loneliness and still came out kind. That's warrior strength, Bella. That's the strength that matters. His hand found mine. Everything else, I'll teach you. How to move in my world. How to protect yourself. How to be the queen beside the king. I don't know how to be a queen. Good. I don't trust people who think they already know everything. He pulled me against his side, and I let myself lean into his warmth. We'll figure it out together, one day at a time. Starting with today, getting you home, getting you settled, introducing you to the people who matter. Your family? Eventually. First, my inner circle, the people who keep me alive. He pressed a kiss to the top of my head, casual and affectionate. They're going to love you, or they'll pretend to, which amounts to the same thing in my world. Despite everything, I laughed. The sound surprised us both. There it is, Dante murmured. The sound I've been waiting to hear. Genuine joy. I'm going to make that my mission, Isabella. Making you laugh like that as often as possible. You're dangerous, I said, but there was no heat in it. Only to people who threaten what's mine. His arm tightened around me. And you're mine now, which means you're the safest person in this city. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe that safety was possible, that this beautiful dream wouldn't shatter like everything else good in my life. But as I stood there in his arms, watching the sun rise over Vegas on my wedding day, I let myself hope. Just for a moment. Just long enough to believe that maybe, just maybe, I'd found something real in the darkness. My monster. My husband. My chance at something more than survival. Take me home, I whispered. Take me home, Dante. Always, he promised. Always, Bella. Always. The house, no, the estate, that Dante called home made the Chen residence look like a cottage. We drove through gates that looked like they could withstand a military assault. up a winding drive lined with trees that had probably been planted before I was born, until we reached a modern masterpiece of glass and stone that seemed to grow out of the hillside itself. "This is home," Dante said, watching my face carefully as the car stopped. I couldn't find words. The place was stunning. All clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows that offered views of Los Angeles sprawling below like a carpet of lights. Even in daylight, I could see how the city would look at night from here. A galaxy of possibilities, all of them far below us. "It's too much," I finally managed. "It's safe. That's what matters." He helped me out of the car, his hand steady on my elbow. "The windows are bulletproof. The security system is military grade. There are 12 guards on rotation, cameras on every entrance, and a safe room in the basement that could withstand a siege. You're protected here, Isabella, always." The casual mention of needing that level of security should have terrified me. Instead, it grounded me in the reality of what I'd chosen. This wasn't a fairy tale. This was survival, dressed up in expensive architecture. The front door opened before we reached it. A woman in her 50s stood there, dressed in simple but elegant clothing, her gray hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her face was kind but assessing as her eyes landed on me. "Mr. Rossi," she said, her voice warm with genuine affection. "Welcome home. And this must be my wife, Isabella." The pride in Dante's voice when he said it made something flutter in my chest. "Bella, this is Rosa. She manages the household. Anything you need, she's the person to ask." "Wife?" Rosa's eyebrows shot up, but she recovered quickly, a smile spreading across her face. "Well then, Mrs. Rossi, welcome home. I must say you've surprised us all. I've surprised myself," I admitted. Rosa laughed, the sound genuine and warm. "I like her already. Come inside. You must be exhausted. I've prepared the master suite," and she paused, glancing at Dante. "Should I prepare a separate room as well?" "No," Dante said firmly, then looked at me. "Unless you want—" "No." The word came out stronger than I felt. "We're married. We share a room." Something fierce and possessive flashed in Dante's eyes. "Good." Rosa led us through the house, pointing out rooms as we went, a living area with furniture that looked too expensive to sit on, a kitchen that could have serviced a restaurant, a library with more books than I'd seen outside of an actual library. Every space was beautiful, modern, and slightly impersonal, like a magazine spread rather than a home. "We haven't had a woman's touch here in years," Rosa said, as if reading my thoughts. "Since Mr. Rossi's mother passed. Feel free to change anything you like, Mrs. Rossi. Make it yours." The master suite was on the second floor, overlooking the city. The bedroom alone was bigger than the apartment I'd shared with 3 other girls. A king-sized bed dominated the space, covered in white linens that looked cloud-soft. Through an open door, I could see a bathroom with a tub big enough to swim in. "Your things are being delivered this afternoon," Dante said, "though I suspect you'll want to shop for more. Rosa can take you, or I can assign someone. I can take myself." The words came out sharper than intended. "I mean, I'm capable of—" "I know you're capable." He moved closer, his hand cupping my face. "But you're also the wife of Dante Rossi now. That means you don't go anywhere without security. Not because I don't trust you, but because I don't trust the world not to try to hurt you to get to me." The reality of my new life settled over me like a weighted blanket. "So I'm a prisoner. You're protected. There's a difference." His thumb stroked across my cheekbone. "But I understand it feels like a cage right now. Give it time. You'll learn to move within it, find freedom in the boundaries, and if you really need to go somewhere alone, we'll talk about it. Figure it out together." Rosa cleared her throat delicately. "I'll leave you to settle in. Lunch will be ready in an hour, or I can bring something up if you'd prefer privacy." "Up, please," Dante said, not taking his eyes off me. "And Rosa, send word to Marco and Antonio. Family meeting tonight, 7 o'clock. "Of course, sir." Rosa left, closing the door softly behind her. Suddenly, I was alone with my husband in our bedroom, and the weight of everything that had happened in the past 24 hours crashed over me like a wave. "I need a minute," I whispered, moving toward the bathroom. "I just need—" "Take all the time you need." Dante's voice was gentle. "I have calls to make anyway. Yell if you need anything." I locked myself in the bathroom and immediately felt stupid for it. What was I afraid of? Dante had been nothing but patient, nothing but kind, in his own intense, overwhelming way. But my hands were shaking, my breath coming too fast, and I needed space to process. I'd gotten married, to a Mafia boss, after knowing him for less than a day. The girl staring back at me from the mirror looked like a stranger, clean, well-dressed, wearing a wedding ring that probably cost more than I'd made in my entire life. Who was she? What had I become? A knock on the door made me jump. "Isabella? You okay in there?" "I'm fine," I called back, my voice only slightly unsteady. "You're having a panic attack." "I'm not. Your breathing is too fast. I can hear it through the door." A pause. "I'm not going to push my way in, but I need you to breathe with me, okay? In for 4 counts, hold for 4, out for 4. Can you do that?" I wanted to be annoyed at his presumption, but he was right. My chest was too tight, my vision spotting at the edges. "Okay. Good. In, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. I followed his voice, the calm steadiness of it anchoring me. Slowly, my heart rate settled. My vision cleared. My hands stopped shaking quite so badly. "Better?" he asked after a few minutes. "Better," I admitted, opening the door. He stood there, concern written across his features, making him look younger, more vulnerable. "This is a lot. I know it's a lot. If you want to slow down, take time to adjust." "No." I stepped closer to him. "No, I just needed a moment. I'm okay now. I chose this. I'm not backing out." "You can back out anytime you want. I meant what I said. You always have a choice with me." The sincerity in his voice undid something in my chest. I reached up, touching his face. The first time I'd initiated contact. His skin was warm, the stubble on his jaw rough against my palm. "I don't want to back out," I said quietly. "I'm scared, but I don't want to run. I just need you to be patient with me while I figure out how to be the person you need." "You're already the person I need. Just be yourself, Bella. That's all I want." He turned his head, pressing a kiss to my palm. "Now come. Lunch will be here soon, and you need to eat. Then you should rest. Tonight's going to be intense, the family meeting." Right. I'd almost forgotten about that in the chaos of everything else. Lunch was simple but delicious. Fresh pasta with vegetables, crusty bread, a salad that tasted like actual food instead of just rabbit food. Dante watched me eat with that same intense focus, like my enjoyment of the meal mattered to him personally. "Tell me about your family," I said between bites. "The people I'm meeting tonight." His expression darkened slightly. "Marco is my second in command. Known him since we were kids. He's loyal, smart, and utterly ruthless when necessary. He'll be skeptical of you at first. He's protective of me. Thinks most women are after my money or status. You'll have to win him over. And Antonio, my cousin, runs our financial operations. He's smoother than Marco, better with people, but just as dangerous underneath. He'll be polite to your face and judge you behind your back until he decides if you're worthy." "Sounds delightful," I muttered. Dante smiled. "They're family. They're allowed to be difficult, but they'll come around once they see you're not going anywhere, once they see you're real." "What about your actual family, parents, siblings?" His face went carefully blank. "My father died 3 years ago. Heart attack during a business dinner. Real one, not faked," he added with dark humor. "My mother died when I was 12, cancer. I have no siblings, no wife before you, no children." He paused. "What about you?" "You said no family, but my parents died in a car accident when I was 19. I was supposed to start college that fall. Instead, I spent everything we had on funeral costs and ended up in Los Angeles with nothing but a suitcase and some terrible decisions." The old pain felt distant now, like it had happened to someone else. No siblings, no cousins I know about. Just me. Not anymore. He reached across the table, taking my hand. "Now you have me. You have this house, this life. You have protection and security. You're not alone anymore, Isabella. Never again. The promise felt too big, too impossible. But I wanted to believe it. After lunch, Dante insisted I rest. You've been up for over 24 hours. Sleep for a few hours. I'll wake you at 6 to get ready for tonight. I wanted to protest, but exhaustion was pulling at me like a tide. The bed, when I finally lay down on it, was the most comfortable thing I'd ever experienced. The last thing I remembered was Dante pulling a blanket over me, his hand gentle in my hair. Sleep, Bella. I'll keep watch. I woke to darkness and the smell of coffee. For a moment, I panicked. Where was I? Then memory returned. The house, the marriage, the new life I'd chosen. Dante sat in a chair near the window, backlit by the city lights, working on a laptop. He looked up as I stirred. Good. You're awake. It's 6:30. The meeting's at 7. He stood, moving to the bed. There are clothes in the closet. Rosa took the liberty of having some things delivered. Choose something that makes you feel confident. These men will try to intimidate you. Don't give them the satisfaction. The closet was a revelation. Designer dresses, casual wear, shoes in every style, all in my size. I chose a simple black dress, elegant without being flashy, confident without trying too hard. It hit just below my knee and had long sleeves, covering most of my skin. Armor, I thought. Professional armor. When I emerged, Dante was waiting in a fresh suit, his hair still damp from a shower I'd slept through. His eyes traced over me, approval clear in his expression. Perfect, simple, elegant, understated. You look like you belong. He offered his hand. Ready? No, but let's do it anyway. The meeting was held in Dante's office, a masculine space of dark wood and leather furniture. 2 men stood as we entered, their expressions carefully neutral. Marco was exactly what I'd expected. Tall, built like a boxer, with cold eyes that assessed me like a threat. Antonio was smoother, handsome in an obvious way, his smile friendly, but his eyes calculating. Gentlemen, Dante said, his hand firm on my back. I'd like you to meet my wife, Isabella Rossi. The silence was deafening. Then Marco spoke, his voice rough. Your wife? Since when? Since this morning. Vegas. You got married in Vegas without telling anyone? Antonio's smooth facade cracked slightly. Dante, what the hell? I don't need permission to make decisions about my personal life, Dante said, his voice taking on an edge. I'm informing you as a courtesy, not asking for approval. Marco's jaw clenched. With all due respect, boss, this affects all of us. You marry some random girl. She's not random. The danger in Dante's voice made the temperature drop. She's my wife. She's family now. And you will treat her with the respect that position demands. I stepped forward before things could escalate further. I know this is sudden. I know you have concerns about me, about my intentions, about whether I'm worthy of him. I met Marco's eyes steadily. I can't prove myself with words. But I can promise you this. I didn't marry him for money or status. I married him because he saw me when I was invisible, because he offered me a choice when I'd never had one before, and because despite knowing how dangerous this world is, I chose to stand beside him anyway. Marco stared at me for a long moment. Then surprisingly, he smiled. A real smile that softened his harsh features. You got backbone. I'll give you that. She held my hand when she thought I was dying, Dante said quietly. She stayed when anyone else would have run. That's who she is. That's why I chose her. Antonio moved forward, offering his hand. Then welcome to the family, Isabella. I apologize for the hostile reception. We're just protective of Dante. He's all we have. I understand. I shook his hand, relieved when he didn't crush my fingers. I'm not here to take him away from you. I'm here to stand with him, with all of you. The tension in the room eased fractionally. Marco poured drinks, whiskey for himself and Antonio, wine for me, and we talked. About expectations, about security protocols, about the reality of being married to Dante Rossi. There will be attempts, Marco said bluntly. On your life, on your safety. People will try to use you to hurt him. You need to be smart, aware, never take unnecessary risks. I understand. Do you? Antonio leaned forward. Because this isn't like the movies, Isabella. People will die to get to you. Good people, loyal people. Can you live with that weight? The question hung in the air. Could I? Could I live knowing that my existence put others in danger? I looked at Dante, at the man I'd married this morning in a Vegas chapel, at the man who'd freed me and chosen me and promised to keep me safe. Yes, I said firmly. I can live with it, because the alternative, going back to being invisible, to being nothing, that's not living at all. Dante's hand found mine under the table, squeezing gently. Pride radiated from him in waves. Then let's make sure it doesn't come to that, Marco said, raising his glass. To the new Mrs. Rossi, may she be as tough as she needs to be. To Isabella, Antonio echoed. Welcome to the family. God help you. You're one of us now. We drank, and I felt the weight of my choice settle over me like a crown. Heavy, but mine. Dangerous, but real. I was Isabella Rossi now, and whatever that meant, whatever came next, I would face it standing tall. No more invisibility. No more apologizing for existing. I was seen. I was chosen. I was home. The weeks that followed were a blur of learning to navigate a world I'd never imagined belonging to. Rosa became my guide, teaching me the unspoken rules of Dante's universe, how to dress for different occasions, which conversations to engage in and which to politely avoid, how to spot threats disguised as friends. You're doing well, she told me one morning over coffee, 3 weeks into my new life. Better than most would in your position. You have good instincts. I'm terrified most of the time, I admitted. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. It's the ones who get comfortable who end up dead. She patted my hand. But you're stronger than you think, Mrs. Rossi. I see it. Mr. Rossi sees it. Soon, everyone else will too. Dante was patient in ways I hadn't expected. He gave me space when I needed it, proximity when I craved it, and never pushed for more than I was ready to give. We shared a bed, but he held me like I was precious, like I might break if he gripped too hard. Sometimes I woke to find him watching me, his expression unguarded in the darkness, vulnerable and fierce all at once. What are you thinking? I asked one night, catching him staring. That I don't deserve you, he said quietly. That somehow I tricked fate into giving me something good, and that I'm terrified every day that you'll realize what a monster I am and run. I rolled toward him, pressing my palm against his chest, feeling his heartbeat strong and steady beneath my hand. You're not a monster. Monsters don't look at their wives like they hung the moon. Monsters don't hold hands with dying strangers. I wasn't dying, but I didn't know that, and you wanted to see if I had kindness in me even when there was nothing to gain. That's not something a monster would care about. I moved closer, until there was no space between us. You're dangerous, Dante, but you're not a monster. Not to me. He kissed me then, deeply, desperately, like I was air and he was drowning, and for the first time since our wedding night, I kissed him back with equal hunger, equal need. Bella, he breathed against my lips. Are you sure? I'm sure. I pulled him closer. I'm your wife. I want to be your wife in every way. What followed was tender and intense, passionate and careful. He touched me like I was sacred, like my pleasure mattered more than his own. And when it was over, we lay tangled together, my head on his chest, his hand stroking through my hair. I love you, he said into the darkness. I know it's too soon. I know I shouldn't feel this much this fast. But I do. I love you, Isabella Rossi. My heart stuttered. You don't have to say it back, not until you're ready. I just needed you to know. He pressed a kiss to the top of my head. I'll wait as long as it takes, but the truth was, I didn't need more time. Somewhere between the fake heart attack and the Vegas chapel, between learning to navigate his world and finding safety in his arms, I'd fallen too. I love you too, I whispered. God help me, I do. His arms tightened around me, then we're both damned together. I can live with that. The first real threat came on a Tuesday. I was shopping with Rosa at a boutique in Beverly Hills, My first real outing beyond the estate. 2 guards flanked us, subtle but present. I was trying on dresses for a charity gala Dante wanted me to attend, feeling almost normal for the first time in weeks. Then I saw him. A man across the street, watching me through the boutique window. Something about the way he stood, the intensity of his stare, made my skin crawl. I met his eyes, and he smiled, cold and predatory. "Rosa," I said quietly. "That man across the street, is he—" She glanced over, and her face went pale. "Inside. Now, guards." Everything happened fast. The guards pushed us toward the back of the store. Rosa was on her phone, speaking rapid Italian, and through the window, I saw the man pull out a gun. Glass shattered. Someone screamed. One of the guards shoved me to the floor, his body covering mine as bullets tore through the boutique. Then it was over. Sirens wailed. The guard above me was bleeding from his shoulder, but alive. Rosa was shouting orders. And across the street, the man was gone. Disappeared like smoke. Dante arrived within minutes, his face a mask of cold fury as he burst through the door. His eyes found me on the floor, and something in his expression cracked. "Bella." He was beside me in seconds, pulling me up, his hands running over me, checking for injuries. "Are you hurt? Tell me you're not hurt. I'm fine. I'm okay." My voice shook despite my words. "But Marco, he was shot. He'll live. He's been through worse." Dante pulled me against him, his arms iron bands around my body. "You shouldn't have been here. I shouldn't have let you leave the house. This is my fault. You can't keep me locked up forever. Watch me." The words were fierce, possessive. "If keeping you alive means you never leave the estate again, then that's what happens." "Dante?" "No." He pulled back, cupping my face in his hands. "You don't understand. If something happened to you, if you died because of me, because of what I am," his voice broke, "I wouldn't survive it, Isabella. You're everything. You're the only good thing in my entire goddamn life. I can't lose you." The raw emotion in his voice stripped away my protest. This wasn't about control. This was about fear. Real, visceral fear that matched my own. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay, we'll figure it out. More security, better protocols, whatever you need. But Dante, I can't live in a cage. Even a golden one. You have to let me breathe." He closed his eyes, his forehead pressing against mine. I know, Bella. We'll find a balance. But right now, let me take you home. Let me keep you safe." The attack changed everything. Security doubled. Every outing required extensive planning. And Dante became even more protective, shadowing me whenever possible, his tension palpable whenever I was out of his sight. "It was the Castellanos," Marco told us that evening, his shoulder bandaged but his spirit unbroken. "They're trying to start a war. Hitting your wife sends a message that you're weak, distracted, vulnerable. Then we send a message back." Dante's voice was ice. "We show them exactly how vulnerable I'm not." "Dante, no." I grabbed his arm. "Don't start a war because of me. Don't risk your people because someone took a shot at me. They didn't just take a shot at you. They threatened what's mine. They need to understand that has consequences. And what happens to me while you're busy fighting? What happens if you die in this war?" The thought made my chest tight. I didn't marry you to become a widow. The room fell silent. Marco and Antonio exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable with the domestic dispute playing out before them. "She's right," Antonio said finally. "A war hurts everyone. We lose men, we lose money, we lose ground. Maybe there's a smarter play here. What do you suggest?" Dante's jaw was tight. "A show of unity. Bring Isabella to the family's meeting next week. Let everyone see that she's not just your weakness, she's your strength. That attacking her doesn't divide you, it unites you. That she's under your protection, and the protection of everyone loyal to you." Marco nodded slowly. "It's bold, but it might work. Show them she's not a target, she's untouchable." Dante looked at me. "It would be dangerous. Every family in Los Angeles will be there, including the Castellanos. You'd be walking into a room full of people who might want you dead. Then I'll walk in beside you," I said, surprising myself with my certainty. "I'll show them I'm not afraid, that we're not afraid. Pride flickered in his eyes. You're sure? I'm sure. I squeezed his hand. We're in this together, remember? For better or worse. That's what I promised in Vegas. The family's meeting was held in a neutral location. An upscale restaurant closed for the evening, its private dining room filled with men who'd built empires on blood and fear. I wore red, Dante's choice, bold and unapologetic, and walked into that room with my head high and my hand in his. Every eye turned to us. I felt the weight of their assessment, their judgment, their curiosity, but I didn't flinch. I was Isabella Rossi, and I belonged here. Dante led me to the head of the table, pulling out my chair with careful courtesy before taking his own seat. Marco and Antonio flanked us, a show of unity. Gentlemen, Dante said, his voice carrying through the room, I'd like to introduce my wife, Isabella. Some of you may have heard about the recent incident. Let me be clear. Any future attacks on her will be considered attacks on me personally, and will be responded to with extreme prejudice. Carlo Castellano, a heavy-set man with cold eyes, leaned forward. With respect, Rossi, maybe if you focused less on your new bride and more on business. My marriage doesn't affect my business, but your attempt on her life certainly affects ours. Dante's voice dropped to something dangerous. You thought you'd send a message, so let me send one back. Touch her again, threaten her again, even look at her wrong, and I'll burn your entire organization to the ground. Am I clear? The room crackled with tension. Castellano's face reddened. You're declaring war over a woman? I'm declaring war over my wife. There's a difference. Dante's hand found mine on the table, his grip possessive. This isn't about weakness or distraction. This is about respect. She's family now. Under my protection, under all of our protection, if you understand what family means. Slowly, around the table, men nodded. Some reluctant, some approving, but all understanding the message. I wasn't a target. I was untouchable. Castellano sat back, his expression sour but accepting. Fine. The girl is off limits, but this doesn't change our other disputes. Those we can negotiate like reasonable men, Dante agreed, but Isabella is non-negotiable. The meeting continued, but I barely heard it. All I could focus on was Dante's hand in mine, the way he'd defended me, the way he'd made it clear I mattered. Not as property, not as a weakness, but as his partner, his equal. When we finally left hours later, I was exhausted, but exhilarated. You did well tonight, Dante said in the car, pulling me against his side. You showed them you're not just my wife. You're a force to be reckoned with. I was terrified the entire time. I know, but you didn't show it. That's what matters. He pressed a kiss to my temple. I'm so proud of you, Bella. So damn proud. The months that followed settled into a rhythm. I learned to navigate Dante's world with increasing confidence. The bookshop opened, a beautiful space in Santa Monica that became my sanctuary. My purpose beyond being Mrs. Rossi. Rosa taught me to shoot, to spot surveillance, to trust my instincts. And Dante loved me with an intensity that still took my breath away. Protective but not suffocating. Possessive but respectful. Dangerous to everyone but gentle with me. We fought sometimes. Passionate arguments about security and freedom and finding balance. But we always came back together, always found our way back to each other. One evening, 6 months after our Vegas wedding, I found Dante in his office, staring at security footage from the night we'd met, the hallway at the Chen estate, me with my cleaning supplies, him emerging from the shadows, watching our meet cute, I teased, sliding into his lap. Watching the moment my life changed. He corrected, his arms wrapping around me. The moment I saw you and knew, just knew, that you were going to save me. I didn't save you. You saved yourself. No, Bella. You saved me. From becoming the monster everyone expected. From forgetting why any of this matters. From being alone in a room full of people. He turned me to face him. You make me better. You make me human. You were always human. You just needed someone to remind you. He kissed me, soft and sweet and full of promise. When he pulled back, his eyes held something that made my heart skip. I want to give you something, he said, pulling a folder from his desk. "I had the lawyers draw this up. It's a trust for the bookshop, for your financial independence, for your future. Completely separate from me. If something happens to me, if you decide to leave, if..." "I'm not leaving." I pressed my fingers to his lips. "Stop planning for me to leave. I'm planning for you to have choices, always choices, Bella. That's what I promised you." He set the folder aside, pulling me closer. "But I'm hoping, God, I'm hoping you choose to stay. Every day. For the rest of our lives." I looked at this man, this dangerous, complicated, tender man who'd faked a heart attack to test my character, who'd freed me from slavery and given me a kingdom, who'd declared war to keep me safe and built me a bookshop to feed my soul. "I choose you," I whispered. "Every day, every night, in every world and every life. I choose you, Dante Rossi, even knowing what I am, what I do, especially knowing, because you're also the man who holds my hand in the dark, who makes me laugh when I want to cry, who sees me, really sees me, and loves me anyway." I cupped his face in my hands. "You're my monster, my husband, my home, and I'm not going anywhere." He buried his face in my neck, and I felt wetness against my skin. Tears from a man who probably hadn't cried in years. "I love you. God, I love you so much it terrifies me. I love you too. And I'm not scared anymore." It was true. Somewhere along the way, the fear had transformed into strength. The cage had become a kingdom, and the maid who'd been invisible had become a queen. "Thank you," he whispered against my skin. "Thank you for staying when I was dying. Thank you for choosing me when you should have run. Thank you for being exactly who you are. Thank you for seeing me," I whispered back. "Thank you for freeing me. Thank you for loving me enough to give me choices even when you wanted to lock me away." We sat there for a long time, wrapped in each other. Two broken people who'd found healing in the most unlikely place. The city sparkled below us through the windows. Millions of lives playing out in the darkness. But up here, in this house on the hill, we'd found something rare, something precious. We'd found home in each other's arms. And that was worth every risk, every danger, every impossible choice that had led us here. I was Isabella Rossi, once invisible, now seen, once owned, now free, once alone, now loved beyond measure, and I'd never been happier in my entire life. Outside, the city burned with light and life and endless possibility. Inside, I was wrapped in the arms of a man who'd die to keep me safe and live to see me smile. I thought about that night in the library, when I'd held what I thought was a dying man's hand, when I'd chosen compassion over self-preservation, when I'd proven, to him and to myself, that I was still capable of kindness in a cruel world. It had been a test, but it had also been a beginning, the beginning of everything. "Come to bed," I murmured, standing and pulling him with me. "We have the rest of our lives to watch security footage. Tonight, I just want to be with my husband." He smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his entire face. As my wife commands, we walked to our bedroom hand in hand, two people who'd found each other in the darkness and chosen to create light together. The future stretched before us, uncertain and dangerous and absolutely beautiful, but whatever came next, we'd face it together, in sickness and health, for richer or poorer, in danger and in safety, till death do us part. And maybe, just maybe, not even then. Because love like ours didn't end when hearts stopped beating. It echoed through eternity, a promise kept in darkness and light. Forever.